Good morning. It is 6:14 a.m. on Friday, August 25th, 2017. I'm Christiana Ellis and I just got up. This is 5 more minutes. Today is Luna's last day of radiation therapy. So that's exciting. Or rather, it'll be exciting when she's done. Because today, it's the last one, but until it's done, it's really not that different than the others. Anyway, as I briefly mentioned or remembered right at the end of yesterday's video, I was going to talk a little bit about re-experiencing the story of Dune Messiah, which is book 2 of the Dune series, listening to the audiobooks. It's interesting because I first read the Dune series way back in high school. And so that was a long time ago. And almost more than it being a long time ago in time, it was a long time ago in terms of my own maturity level and awareness of the world and so on. And so re-listening to the story, it's very obvious to me that there was a lot of stuff that I just did not pick up on or really understand when I originally read the book. And namely, that is that the whole idea of the series is to really sort of deconstruct and condemn the whole idea of, messianic hero making. This idea that in book 1, Paul becomes this prophesied figure, the hero that's going to change everything and lead them to victory and everything. But, if you're reading Dune at a more superficial level, it would be easy to miss some of the hints, and even some of the places where Paul pretty much straight up says it, which is recognizing his, quote, terrible purpose, which is to say, his visions of the future show him and kind of trap him in this position where he feels like he has to do what he's doing, but he sees that it has terrible ripple effects that lead through the world. And his attempt to eliminate an evil from the world and to topple a form of tyranny that has harmed him personally and harms a lot of other people that he cares about and so on. And he wants to do that, and it seems like it's a good thing, but he kind of recognizes that the marshaling of the forces needed to do that, and in particular by relying on the religious prophecies that have been set up, he creates something that he can't really control after that. And Dune Messiah, the second book, is where that stuff really comes home to roost. It starts 12 years after the original book, and it has become clear that all of the Fremen forces that Paul, rallied to defeat the Harkonnens in the first book have now kind of realized, hey, guess what? We're awesome badass fighters and nobody can beat us. And we believe that we have the religious truth that gives us the right to take whatever we want from anywhere in the universe. And they have decided that Paul is a god, and that because they are serving the will of their god, whether they're doing exactly what he says or not, means that they get to kind of just take over everywhere, and they start basically just billions of people are dying as a result of this army just going everywhere to enforce Paul's rule. And Paul is finding himself stuck in a position of saying, this is all terrible and it's my fault. But because he can see the future, he keeps saying, I can't see what I can do, because anything that I try to change, it seems like the outcome just gets worse and worse. So, like, if I were to try to stop them from doing what they're doing, there's various things that he could try, but each one makes it worse. And he doesn't. So he's kind of trapped by those visions, and it's kind of a nightmare. He's in a jail of his own construction, and so what he is dealing with for all of book two is essentially like, how do I get out of this? Because I've created this moral hazard, and it seems like the only way I can try to at least even limit how terrible it could continue to be is ultimately to kind of destroy myself and everything I care about personally. And he basically has to do that. But it's subtle, and if you're reading it at a very superficial level, like I was in high school, it just feels like, well, Paul was awesome and just won everything in the first book, and now it's like everyone's just talking a lot and he's losing, and he seems like he's fine with losing, and like he goes blind and then he just walks into the desert. What? Everybody, like, it seems like an unhappy ending, as opposed to recognizing more about what the book is trying to do with the whole prophecy element and what Paul's real goals are, where it really becomes more of a triumph that he is able and willing to choose personal destruction as an attempt to forestall a worse future. And yet, at the same time, recognizing that he's no saint, despite him literally being made a saint. Because ultimately, he still did it in the first place. He recognizes that his actions from the first book, even though they felt right in the moment, he had visions of the future that told him that would cause all of these terrible things to happen. And it seems like maybe he thought that he could get around it. But the interesting element, too, is in this second book, is that there is a really profound fundamental thing that he misses, because he's so reliant on his visions of the future. And at one point he has been made physically blind by like a radiation weapon, and yet now he knows he can essentially see, because his future vision is so precise, that as long as he follows something he's foreseen, it's like he's not blind at all. But what that does is kind of trap him into having to follow that particular vision instead of finding some other way. And that, of course, is just kind of a microcosm metaphor of his whole situation, which is as terrible as the visions he can see are, he is afraid to try anything else. And then that decision is kind of forced on him when it's revealed that something that he could have predicted just from ordinary logic and understanding of the world, namely his wife giving birth to twins instead of just one kid, is he doesn't foresee that because of Okay, now we're getting just geeky stuff. It's a good book, and it's much more complex than I realized when I read it in high school. Okay, I've got to go to work now. So, anyway, that's Dune Messiah, and I'll talk to you tomorrow for 5 more minutes.